Hey guys, it's Chris at Highland Guitars. You're watching another one of my YouTube guitar building videos. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I hope that by the end of this video, I'll have earned the honor and privilege of your subscription. Okay, so in today's video, we're going to be changing directions to some degree. In the last video, where I was talking about my 6-string multi-scale fan fret guitar build, I had level sanded the Z-epoxy finishing resin. And in this video, I was going to polish sand it and then buff it to a high gloss shine. However, in my tests, I found that I was not as happy with the gloss finish as I had hoped I would be after buffing it out. It just didn't have the quality of shine that I come to expect in a clear coat finish on a guitar. As a result, I have decided to change the plan a little bit. And what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to apply multiple coats of Crystalac Brite Tone instrument finish, the high gloss formula. The reason is because I know the quality of shine that I will get from that finish. I have used it many times in the past, and it has always produced what I consider to be the standard setting high gloss mirror-like shine. Nothing else comes close as far as I'm concerned, at least nothing that is water-based. So the Brite Tone is a low VOC, low toxicity finish, and it's not flammable. So it's safe to apply it in a workshop setting like my garage. And that's what I'm going to be doing. So the first thing I have to do is prep the Z-epoxy surface by giving it a light 400 grit sanding, and then I'll begin applying the Brite Tone itself. So I'll bring it in closer and we'll get started. All I have to do to get it ready for the Brite Tone is to just lightly sand the surface with some P400 grit sandpaper, and I've wrapped it around one of these rubber erasers. But the reason why I'm using 400 grit instead of something coarser like a 320 or 220 is because the sanding scratches left by the 400 are very faint in comparison to those two coarser grits. So the clear coat that I apply over it will hide those sanding scratches more easily than they would if they were 320 or 220. Also, the 400 grit scratches are sufficient to provide us an excellent surface for the Brite Tone to adhere to. So I'll just lightly sand the surface just to get it ready for that clear coat. Alright guys, so this is my setup that I use when I spray finishes on my guitars. What you see in front of you is a portable spray station or spray booth that I made years ago. And I've talked about this in other videos where I've been applying finishes. But basically what it does, it allows me to spray the finishes, and it also is designed so that I can evacuate any fumes or overspray out the back using an 8-inch vent fan. So that works pretty well. It does a great job of pulling any overspray through that filter and out. But to spray it, I am using an Crystalac 5500 spray gun, which is hooked up to my Crystalac 5500 spray station. And this is a turbine spray unit. I believe it's a 3-stage turbine unit. Typically with turbines, the more stages you have, the smoother the finish will be. But it supplies air through that hose and into the gun. But before I can hook it up and start spraying, I need to fill the container with the clear coat that I'm going to be using, which is the Crystalac Brite Tone Clear Gloss. And I'm going to pour it in through a paint strainer, because as you can see, sometimes this stuff builds up chunks around the bottle, around the mouth of the container. And you don't want this stuff to get into your spray, into the fluid in the spray gun, because if it runs through the gun, it's going to clog it and it's going to cause your finish to splatter, which is never a good thing. So I'll pour some into the container, and I don't need to fill the container full. I'm just going to pour in enough to do my clear coats. So it's not filling the entire container. A quart container like this is way more than is necessary to apply clear coats to a guitar. In fact, with the amount that I've put in here, I can do a good 10 coats on a guitar body. So, and that's a question that always comes up, is how many coats of Brite Tone do you need to put on a guitar body? And really that question, what the answer comes down to how many coats you can apply and feel confident that you can level sand it without sanding through to the underlying finish. And it also depends on how heavy you apply your coats. So obviously you don't want to apply them too heavy, or you're going to get runs and drips. So you want to try to apply them thin enough to where they won't run or drip, but at the same time you want to build up enough thickness, film thickness, so that when you sand it later on, when you level sand and polish sand, you're not going to sand through the finish. And I found that typically for me, somewhere between 10 and 15 coats is adequate. And because this is a water-based finish, one of the things that you can do is you can spray it, and then once you have a coat applied, you can set the gun down, grab a hair dryer, and just quickly dry the surface, and then apply a second coat. And you can keep doing that until you've applied all 10 of the coats that you intend to spray onto it. And in the end, it might take you maybe an hour to apply all 10 coats. And then once you're done applying those 10 coats, you can set it aside to not only fully dry, which will take maybe an hour, maybe less. Usually it's between 20 minutes to an hour, depending on your humidity levels and the temperature that you're working in. Warmer, drier climates are going to make the clear coat dry a lot faster. But then it has to cure, and curing is different than drying. Drying, it'll feel dry, in, like I said, 20 minutes to an hour, but then it won't be fully cured for probably at least a week, maybe a little bit longer. Typically, I usually let mine sit for a couple weeks before I'll start level sanding. But right after it's been sprayed and it has had a chance to dry for that initial hour, the surface is gonna feel kind of like a vinyl, or kind of a rubbery feel. And you'll think, oh, that's awful. That's not going to be a very durable finish. But then once it has gone through the cure, and you'll start to notice this after a day, it starts to feel a little bit harder. And then 3 days later, it's even harder. And then after 2 weeks, it has reached probably about 95 to almost 100% of its total hardness. And it will feel much harder than it did when you initially sprayed it. So don't be put off by the way it feels when you first spray it on and let it dry. So now we'll get ready to start to spray this. Okay, so I am ready to start spraying. But before I do that, I wanted to mention that I normally always wear a respirator when I'm spraying, even though it's a water-based product, because it's still ultimately a plastic, polyurethane. and I don't want that in my lungs. So I will wear this when I'm spraying. However, as I'm filming, I'm wearing the camera on my head, and I'm not able to wear my respirator with the camera. So for the first coat, I'm just going to be setting the respirator aside and then spraying that first coat of finish. And then what I'm going to do is, once I have sprayed that first coat, is I'm going to rapidly dry it with my hair dryer. Then I will spray the next coat immediately after that. And I will continue this way until I have applied about 10 coats of finish. But when I apply those additional coats after I film this first coat, I will wear the respirator. So let's get started. Okay, well, I have finished spraying about 11 coats. Why 11 coats? Well, when I got to the end of the 11th coat, I could tell by the way my spray gun felt that I was probably almost out of material. So I checked to see how much of the Brite tone was left in the can, and there was almost none left in there. So I decided that was enough. 11 coats will do it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hang it up. It'll dry to a touch in about an hour, maybe less. It's pretty warm in my shop right now. I think it's 100 degrees outside. But I'll let the clear coat fully cure for at least a week, but probably closer to 2 weeks. And over that period, it's going to gradually harden. Right now, or in an hour once it's dried to a touch, it's going to feel really rubbery. In fact, you can dent it pretty easily with your fingernail if you were so inclined. But once I let it sit for a couple of days, it will develop enough hardness to where you really can't dent it. And then after 2 weeks, it will be at about close to 100% of its total hardness. And at that stage, I'll be ready to start level sanding, polish sanding, and buffing the finish. So hopefully I'll be able to get to that in the next episode. We'll see. But since I have to let it sit for 2 weeks, there might not be a video next week. So, or there may be a video, but it may not be about the level sanding, polish sanding, and buffing. I may try to discuss some of the other aspects of this 6-string multi-scale fan fret guitar build. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope you learned something and got something out of it. If so, please click the thumbs up button. Visit eguitarplans.com or the Highline Guitars merch store. Any purchases you make there will help support this channel financially, because I don't do the members or the membership or the Patreon stuff. I just sell plans and t-shirts, and that's what helps supports this channel. So, and if you want to keep it simple, you could just click the thanks button and leave a tip in an amount that you think is fair. At any rate, take care, stay safe, and I hope you'll be back for more future guitar building videos.